Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. I've been presented with this question, people asking me, what happens to white boys in prison? I mean, as if there's not enough information that's out there to show you that it really depends on what state you are in. So I'm going to go ahead and break all this down, the comparisons, the differences, how I think some of these dudes could make it if they're in one of these other systems or they're just straight victimized. We're going to go over what the truths are, what's not factual about all of this, and just break it down. I mean, this ain't in any kind of way a means to incite any kind of racial tension or anything like that. Quite the contrary, actually. I mean, it's basically just me speaking to a lot of these dudes, or these dudes that may be going into the system, or these dudes that are involved in some shit that may put them in one of these systems. Maybe some kid that's in one of these states can second guess on whether he wants to actually go in there or not and experience all of this stuff. Because like I said, it breaks down differently according to states. Now, if you were watching Split D TV, you would have seen his interview with, I don't know who that dude was, talking about white boys are a bunch of bitches and punks and lames and all that. And even Split D was talking about they were checking in. All right, then you hear all the horror stories out there in Florida where people are getting pissed on, beat up, robbed, raped, all that shit like that. And it goes on up into Rikers Island, then across over into Illinois, Michigan, all these different systems. White boys just got it all the way bad, and they're just professional victims in there. There's a lot of truth to it. Just from what I've seen, my own eyes, and watching some of these 60-day in videos and stuff like that, you could see where there's a lot of truth to these things. But why does this happen? Why doesn't it happen in California? Why doesn't it happen in Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, Oklahoma, places like that? Why does it only happen in these states? Well, the first thing that you have to understand is it's a numbers game in these states. Like in Texas, I think for every one white dude, there's like 50 black dudes that are in that prison system. Same thing in Florida, same thing in New York, Illinois, Michigan, on and so forth. So if you have like overwhelming odds, an overwhelming amount of numbers against a particular group, for let's say, for example, this group being white men, then if they're outnumbered, then of course they're going to be victimized because it's like an easy target. You don't have a bunch of dudes behind you that can back you up. And plus, a lot of these white dudes that are going into these systems, they're not like killers. They're not people from the streets. A lot of them are just meth users, meth addicts, whatnot, and they're in there for drugs. So when they get in there, they're like, oh, I just want to get drug diversion and get out of here. They're not trying to extend that stay. And you get those dudes that get up into that system, and they're like, oh, wow, look at all these African Americans around me. I better mind my P's and Q's and just be quiet. Or you get that one guy, he's dancing around with the sword like you saw in that one video. Probably doesn't even know how to use the fucking thing. Probably never would even use the thing. I mean, it takes a lot to kill somebody. It takes a special kind of individual to actually plunge that into somebody to try to kill him. I mean, you could try to slice them, maim them, zipper them, just, hit them in non-vital spots, whatnot. But back in the days in like the California prison system, they used to have a diagram that they would give out to a lot of the homies and other people like that. And it showed all the kill shots. Anywhere that you can hit a man, strike a man. I mean, they've talked about it in movies. You've heard about it in books, but it's real, man. There's really information that's put out there about that, because usually how it used to work is if you're going to stab somebody, you kill them. You don't leave somebody alive to be an enemy. So what is the first mistake that a lot of these white dudes are making, like let's say in Florida or Texas or something like that? Well, number one, they're overwhelmed by the odds. Number two, they're stuck in the optical illusion. They think just because this dude has gold teeth, his tattoos all over his face, is kind of big, he obviously knows how to fight. But if you remember hearing me say that a martial arts expert in the feds told me that about 90% of this world does not know how to fight. About 10% of people really know how to fight. And if you look at the numbers, you look at people that are professional fighters, whatnot, it kind of makes sense. Most people can't fight. I mean, if you see a lot of these riot videos that are circulating around YouTube and stuff like that, you see a bunch of people running around in circles. Nobody's really hurting anybody. Nobody really knows how to fight. Everybody's all swinging wild. And most recently, a certain beach incident, you know what I'm talking about. Doesn't matter how drunk you are or anything like that. When you get into that mode of you're fighting and all your adrenaline is rushing, you're pretty much sobering up pretty fast because it's like fight or flight in that situation. So it's the optics and it's the odds that is overwhelming these white dudes. You got some dude, like I said, he's kind of big. He's got tattoos, got some, he's got some bling in his mouth. Coming at this white dude's like, hey, sorry, sir, I didn't mean to upset you. Do you want my soups? You can write my sister. And right off the rip, people are like, damn, man, these white boys are easy victims. You know what I mean? So if you make yourself an easy victim, then you're going to be victimized. And over time, how many of these dudes that keep coming in, and it's the same story over and over and over again, everybody in that system automatically assumes that the next one is just another victim. The only way that you can really break that cycle is that you have to strike in dramatic fashion. You have to do something that basically gets their attention to where you're not going to be a victim. You're basically going to have to poke a hole in somebody. I mean, that's the only way that I could describe doing something in dramatic fashion to them. And it's just like when I was watching Mr. Larry's video, and I am not calling Mr. Larry a liar by any means. I am not. All right, but I find it hard to believe that somebody from the California brand went into the Texas prison system. I've never heard of anybody from that organization going into the Texas prison system, and I would have to believe that whoever this dude was probably a guy from California. He was probably familiar with the brand. He probably lied to Mr. Larry and other people and said he was from that organization in order to see if they would leave him alone. But as you know, that doesn't mean shit in the Texas prison system, because what are they going to, where's going to be, there's going to be no revenge, there's going to be no get back, because all them dudes are in a California prison system or in there in feds. So this dude steadily got butt raped, he got beat up, he got robbed, according to Mr. Larry and all that, and this dude was just another professional victim in the Texas prison system. But the one thing that I do know about dudes from the brand is if they were to go into a system like that, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to poke a bunch of holes in people. They're going to go out in dramatic fashion. I mean, even myself, from what I was up under, being a sureño and everything like that, if I'm going in to somebody else's system, right off the rip, I'm going to know that somebody's going to come at me and say, hey, this is the program. Nah, you ain't running my program. I'm going to have to poke holes in somebody. It's just going to have to be the way it is. I mean, we don't run up under nobody. And that shit has a way of following you. So if I'm up in the Texas prison system and I'm getting taken advantage of and I'm getting turned into a victim, that shit could follow me down the line, and it's not going to happen. I'm not going to allow that to happen to myself. So even if I get beat up, if I get killed, whatever it is, I'm going to have to go hard in there to show them that I'm not a victim. Now, I've had people from Texas tell me, well, it's always a one-on-one fight. Okay, that may be true in some situations, but from the way it was described, according to Mr. Larry, they were lined up at this so-called AB dude's door to beat him up, butt rape him, and do everything else to him. So obviously it wasn't a one-on-one affair with him, and it's obviously not a one-on-one affair every single time. I know prison for what it is. It's all about numbers. It's all about gangs. If you're in a gang and you got the numbers, you're going to prey on the weak. It's just the way it's going to go down. Florida, the same thing. It's all a bunch of youngsters that are into gangs and shit like that, and they're going to try to assert their dominance any way, shape, or form. They're going to use fear. They're going to use optics. They're going to go through all of that stuff in order to scare everybody into giving up their buttholes, giving up their commissary, canteen, whatever you call it there. Maybe they'll even be writing your sister. It's just unfortunate that that's the way it is, but white dudes that most of them that go into these prison systems like Florida and Texas, they're not gangsters. They're not from the streets. So they don't have that street mindset. Because you could take an Asian person, or you could take somebody who's, let's just say he's Puerto Rican or something like that, and he's the only guy in that whole Texas prison system. I promise you they won't victimize this dude because he's probably going to stand up for himself. So if you're standing up for yourself, then right off the rip, that says that this dude, is not going to be an easy target. They want easy targets. People like to pick on the weak in prisons. It's always survival of the fittest. So if it's survival of the fittest and the white dudes they're just basically setting out the signal that we're weak, we're victims, that's what's going to happen to them. LA County Jail, the same way. Like I told you in LA, though, and like if you ask Joey from Free from Fetters Grove, He'll tell you the minute he got up and he got down for his, they put him up in the white gang module. That's what they do to white dudes in L.A. County Jail when they stand up for themselves, because they love to see white boys get victimized in L.A. They used to love to see them walking around barefooted, getting their commissary taken from them. They're punked out of everything, punked off of their beds, mattresses, whatnot. I've seen a lot of them dudes sleeping on cold steel. That's like with me, they're coming at me with that shit, and it's like, nah, man, nah, you ain't going to do that. Well, what's up? I'm right here. I had to fucking put in that work. I had to show that I was actually real, that I wasn't just trying to, like, run up under the homies for protection. I had to fucking pull my weight. And it's just like anybody else has got to pull their weight in there. But anytime a white dude stands up for themselves and gets the upper hand in L.A., they get sent straight to the white gang march. It's the way it is. Go across the freeway into Orange County. White boys are more of a dominant force in there, and people don't victimize them there. They don't get robbed. They don't get beat up, punked around, all this and stuff in there. You get black dudes that come from L.A. and go into the Orange County jail. Quiet as fuck. They don't mess with nobody. They don't bother nobody. They don't victimize nobody. Like I said, it depends on which prison system you're in. Like Arizona, for example, me and Steven Alvarez were talking about it. The white boys in that prison system run that system. Black dudes in there are not punking around any of them white dudes at all in there. Same thing with the CDC. White dudes ain't getting punked by blacks, Chicanos, whoever like that, because they'll all stand up for themselves. The biggest mistake that these dudes make in Florida and Texas and stuff like that is that they always say, you're on your own. They don't group up together, and they don't got each other's back. If they did that, they wouldn't be made a victim and wouldn't be made a target. It doesn't matter if there's only 3 of them. There's only 3 of them in that unit. If you stand up for yourself and the rest of you do it, 3 dudes can do a lot of damage. I don't know if you know anything about the history of a certain Chicano organization in Cali, right? A handful of kids, YA babies from Tracy, shot over to San Quentin, took over the place, pretty much. They ran that spot. And they were usually young kids that are in the system like that around adults, hardened criminals. Usually they're turned into punks. They're holding pockets. They're washing socks. They're doing all that stuff. Not in the case with these guys. These guys took over. They instilled fear because they had each other's backs. I don't know how many times I have to laugh at these 60-day in shows. This white dude's getting smacked around, and the other white dudes are just sitting there like reading a book, and then the commentary pops up like, well, we told Bob to quit causing all that disturbance. Fuck that. Whether Bob's in the right or in the wrong, you should have had his back, and then none of you would be getting treated that way. It's just my take on it, man. It's just like I don't like to see people get bullied. I don't like to see people get taken advantage of. It's just always been like a pet peeve of mine, to watch this, because really you're a coward. And all of these dudes that are in these prisons are cowards because they rely on their numbers. They rely on their overwhelming odds to instill fear and to take advantage of the people that don't have those odds, that don't have those numbers, that don't have people that are in their ranks that have any kind of street smarts, any kind of like courage or valor in their heart at all. Get up into the feds. Whole different ball game, man. Whole different ball game. A lot of them dudes that were preying on him, like let's say in the TDC or in the Florida Department of Corrections or whatever it is, they ain't doing all that shit in the feds. So it's like I said, it's overwhelming odds. Because the odds are so overwhelming in the optics, a lot of these white dudes, man, they're scared. They're scared of like black dudes that are from the hood. They're scared of black dudes that got street smart because they don't have it. But anytime you get a white dude or something like that from the streets, or you get white dudes that are about that business, anytime they go up into one of these systems, doesn't happen to them. I mean, take TK, for example, out there in Florida. Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't get made into a victim, but he was probably around a whole lot of victims. So in his defense, I would have to say that there's an example right there of how you can run in a Florida prison system and not get taken advantage of, because he probably had a couple of dudes that rode with him, and the rest is history. Can't really speak on the other dudes, but I can say that it has been proven that K-Frog held his own. Outside of K-Frog and TK, I can't really speak on anybody else that's coming out of that system. Don't really know much about them. But hearing the stories and talking to the people that knew both of them, I already know what it is. I've met a couple of dudes that have done it in the Texas prison system too, up in the feds. Seen paperwork on it and everything. You hold your own, you're going to get respected. But like I said, you always got to look for that dramatic effect when you're in a situation where the odds are completely against you. You have to lose that optical illusion. You have to look at, most of these dudes probably don't even know how to fight. They rely on their image, their optics, in order to scare you into thinking that they do. But you put a nice little instrument in your hand and you start poking holes, it's a real game changer in a lot of these situations. I don't recommend that any of you do that. As a matter of fact, I would just suggest you all the way stay up out of the prison system. If you don't have this mind of being able to survive in an environment like that, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. And if you're just trying to get in and out so you can go back to your meth pipe, I mean, you're steadily going to be getting ripped off and you're going to be turned into a victim. And that right there is just like, I don't know how somebody could live with themselves going through that. So I always try to suggest to people like that, just stay your ass out of prison because this is going to happen to you. And don't think that it's only for like white boys. I've seen soft black dudes go into these systems and get turned into sissies and everything like that as well, because people smell the fear. People smell the weakness. They'll come at you with something in order to feel you out. You know that if somebody comes to feel you out right off the rip, you already know that you got a target on your back. There's only two ways you could take that target off your back. Either become somebody's professional victim, like basically like you allow one person to victimize you, you pay somebody off, or you start poking holes. I mean, this is the sad reality of prison. It's not a summer camp. It's not meant to be a place where everybody sits around and holds hands and has fun. I laugh at a lot of these people that talk about their prisons have no politics. We don't have any politics in here like you California boys do and all this. Yes, you do, right? If you got gangs running up and down them halls, pressuring people, robbing people, and butt raping people, you have politics. The only difference is that there's nobody in the opposition end that's been able to formulate a group in order to oppose that politics that is being practiced in that prison system. So it's there. Believe me, it's there. There's politics in every prison. So the main question you have to ask yourself is, are you prepared to go into the prison system if you're breaking the law in Florida, Texas, or somewhere else like that? If you go into California, it's irrelevant because you're gonna lock right in with your peeps, whatever county you landed out of. That's going to be your primary spot, and the rest is history. Same thing with AZ. Same thing with like Colorado or Wyoming, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Utah, places like that. But it's like I said, big time. Up there in Florida, Texas, New York, you're a white dude that goes in there, you have two choices, because they're not going to let you PC up just because you're in fear for your safety if there's no motivation or reason for it. So you're going to have to probably sharpen up something. You're probably going to have to take somebody out in dramatic fashion. That's the only way you're going to earn your respect, or you may not. It may just keep on coming. But you'll be able to stand with your head held high knowing that you left with your dignity intact. Or like I said, you could just stay all the way up out of prison. Probably a better idea, just to stay all the way up out of there. Because if you're questioning what will happen to you once you get in there, chances are you're not cut out for it in the first place. You wouldn't be asking the question, what would happen to white boys if they're going to Florida? What really happens to them when goes into Texas? If you have that doubt in your mind, then you're already a half-ass victim. Because I already know what would happen to me if I went in one of those systems. Simple. I'm going to have to poke a hole in somebody because I'm not going to get made into a victim. It's just not going to happen with me. But if it's going to happen to you, chances are you need to change your line of profession and stay all the way the fuck up out of the prison system, period. Just my advice. You already know what it is, and you heard it right here. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, not sugarcoat, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality, and I'm out.